Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mike Goldbridge with, not Mike, I'm not Mike Goldbridge, I'm Mark Goldbridge. Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news this morning. Remember, it's a news show before people start moaning. We are going to be talking about Mason Greenwood. That's probably not the moaning point, although I'm sure people have got a lot of opinion on that. We'll be talking about Mason Greenwood and the possibility of a return to Manchester United next summer. What's the latest from United? What's their stance on that? We'll also be talking about a news story this morning about Jadon Sancho and a potential swap deal in January that Mike's in it again. Might take your fancy. Mike, piss off. You're not in the show. You've had 2 shout-outs already. Bloody hell. Sponsored by Mike this morning. And also want to get into... I really want to get into this. We touched on it last night, but I'm just going to do it. This is what we do. This is why we're different to the mainstream. This is why we get threats and stuff like that. Because we say it as it is. The mainstream is just so cosy. Everybody's just like kissing each other's arse, and they'll only ever say something when they've ran it by their agent or their advisor or anything like that. And that is why you get this complete and utter hypocrisy that we've had in the last 24 hours. And I want to talk about it because I found some more quotes that just make me want to throw up and call out the hypocrisy as to why Manchester United are not going to succeed until they get a winning mentality instead of this nonsense mentality about, you know, recency bias and mates race. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. It's going to be a good show this morning. I hope you're all doing well. Make sure you smash a like and please do listen to the podcast. It's just landed today. Goldbridge Saves Football comes out every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. Check it out, Goldbridge Saves Football. I'll drop the link in the video description and the chat for you. It's a good episode today, and there is a section on Man United. Right, let's get into the show. I was doing a watch along at the weekend. I think it must have been the Liverpool-Brighton game, and a lot of people in the chat were saying Greenwood scored, and I ignored it because, one, it wasn't the United stand, and two, I mean, there's an inevitability to that he'll score goals. I mean, he was a good player, and they're giving him a lot of game time at Getafe. He will score goals. I mean, that's not really a headline to me. The headline to me is, will Mason Greenwood return to Manchester United next summer? And I think that is something that, if I ran a poll now, I think it would be the same as should Scott McTominay start against Sheffield United. I think it would be, you know, well above 80%. But if we did it in the summer, people would sell McTominay, and they would sell. A lot of people wanted to sell Greenwood as well. So it just shows you what I've always said about everything in life: grief, football, time is a healer. People change their opinions. It's very difficult for the human being to stick to the same opinion for a long period of time. It's very hard. Naturally, we are flip-flops. It's proven. That's what we are. So, I mean, look, EAFC, I do my career mode. They've got Mason Greenwood on loan at Manchester United. Even in a computer game, you've got to, you know, I've got a decision to make in the summer, which everyone's going to see me live stream what I do. And that's a computer game. So there is a decision for Manchester United to be made around Mason Greenwood. He will score goals, but what's the latest from United? Well, United's latest, and then we'll give you what we think is going to happen. United's latest stance on Mason Greenwood, and you know, you could get that today if you asked them, but the latest stance on Manchester United from Manchester United is that Mason Greenwood is still a Manchester United player. They stand by their statement made in the summer that they're looking for a future away for Mason Greenwood from Manchester United, and that's why he's on loan at Getafe. So that's where they are at the moment. But I know, and you know, and everybody knows that Ten Hag, Manchester United, were going to bring him back. They were going to bring him back. And then they saw the uproar and the damage it was going to do to their reputation. And quite rightly, they made a different decision at that time. They will reassess this. They will reassess this situation. Everybody knows that. So if you want to see Mason Greenwood back in a Man United shirt, I wouldn't say it's beyond the realms of possibility. Right here, right now, they'll stick with the statements in the summer. But next summer, you know, it will kick off again. I think it will kick off again because United might try. And remember, Man United might have different ownership then. But there is people within the club who like Mason Greenwood posts every time he posts, who are current first-team players. There are people within the club who wanted him back. There are people in the fan base that wanted him back. He wanted to come back. And really, I think this next 9 months in Getafe will be about, one, how well he plays, and two, what the atmosphere back at Manchester United is to bring him back. As I said, in the summer, they wanted him back. They were going to bring him back. Richard Arnold made that decision and they changed the mind. Right here, right now, United's line will be, we're looking for a future away from Mason Greenwood. But in next summer, who knows what will happen? My feeling is that they'll test the water again. I mean, they will. I think they'll test the water again. If there's an asset there that they want to keep, that they think can add something to the team, and they've got no money, then I think they will look to keep him. And I actually think we don't know what a new owner would do. We don't know the stance of a new owner. Some people say, well, Qatar wouldn't give a shit. But on the other hand, Qatar would have the money to go and get what they want. Is it not more likely that the Glazers would want him back because there isn't any money and he's a good player that they already own? I can't look into the future. I can't tell you the future. But what I can tell you is it's not written. I think some people think, oh, it's written, he'll never play for Man United again because that's the stance at the moment. But it'll change. It can change. And I think what would happen, and we can't go leaping into next summer. We can only talk about right now. But if you go to next summer, you'll see what you saw last summer. You'll see certain people not wanting it. I didn't want it in the summer. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I didn't want it in the summer. I think it was the wrong time to do it. And the way I felt about it, I didn't want it then. I don't know how I'm going to feel in the summer next year. I do not know. I can't, and I refuse to, put my penny's worth into that now because you're talking about a year ago, in a year's time. But I don't trust this football club to make a decision on anything that's the right decision. I think that I think we live in a time in football where a lot of bad things get swept under the carpet by greedy people. We've seen it with officiating. We've seen it at Manchester United. We've seen it with the Super League. The fans are just a victim a lot of people in football are trying to manipulate. And I think that we already know that the football club wanted to bring him back and it was a bad decision in my opinion. And they completely misread the room. So why would they not misread the room again? Or why would they not try and bring him back again? We'll have to wait and see. But what I will say right here, right now, people are quite right to point to the fact that, he's playing football for Getafe. Scored a goal. I mean, it wasn't a worldie, it was a tap in, but he is playing football. He's not exiled, he's playing football in La Liga. Do I think he'll be playing in England again at some point in the next 5 years? 100%. Do I think he'll be playing for Manchester United again in the next 5 years? I don't know. I can't answer that. His future will be back in England, 100%. I'm convinced by that. Somebody will take a chance on him and he'll be back playing football. Whether it's at Man United or not, right here, right now, I can't predict that. But a lot of people have been talking about it, and I think that it was a good topic to bring into a news show in the international break because he is playing football. He is a Man United player, and as much as Man United can say what they want publicly, I think we all know behind the scenes they'll be monitoring that situation. And I guarantee you, they said to Greenwood when he went on loan to Spain, we wanted you back. You've seen what the reaction is. Go to Spain, stay out of trouble, play well, and we'll look at the situation next summer. I'll guarantee that's what's been said, and I'll guarantee you that's what will happen. And we will all have to wait and see. So yeah, look, I don't think it's. Someone said, can we do a poll on it? We don't need to do a poll on it because it won't make any difference now. We can do a poll on it next summer. But what I would say is, next summer, I'll be stunned, and you can remember this, I'll be absolutely stunned next summer if there isn't a load of decision-making from Man United. I don't think he comes from back from Getafe, someone offers us 15 million and we take it. I don't think we'll do that. That's what the statement read a couple of months ago. The statement a couple of months ago was about finding Mason Greenwood a club for his future away from Manchester United. That's what the statement said. But I think they'll go back on that statement. We will see. We will see. Welcome to the members club from Josh. Thank you very much. Do you see him ever wearing a Man United shirt again? Well, I've just answered that question. Honestly, I can see him wearing a Man United shirt again. I can. Because I think Man United are run badly. And I think that they can change their decisions very, very quickly. Apparently Eden Hazard has retired. Didn't he retire the day he left Chelsea? Bit of slow sports news there, Eric Ten Hag. Plus he's never played for Man United. Don't give a shit. Anyway, sticking to Manchester United, let's talk about a player that may well be leaving Manchester United, Jadon Sancho. Now, a story this morning is mentioning a swap deal with Chiesa and Juventus. I look. I would do that swap deal now. There's a lot of people I can't. Aiden says, "Sorry, Mark, you can't guarantee that." What? Aiden, can you? You know, if you're going to put a chat in and you're going to take the time to type something, can you type the context? Because you might be. I don't know what I said 2 minutes ago, Aiden. So I don't know what you're talking about. But I know what I said. I guarantee you that Manchester United said to Mason Greenwood when he left to go to Getafe, he's still a Man United player, and we'll see what the situation is next summer. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that. And you know why I do guarantee you that, Aiden? Because, well, one, I might have been told it, but two, he was coming back to Manchester United, and a week later they had to get rid of him. The relationship between United and Greenwood wasn't frosty. Like, it's positive. Like, they were bringing him back, and he thought he was coming back, and then there was all the uproar, and they loaned him out. There's a good relationship between Mason Greenwood and Manchester United, whether you like it or not. It's not get out of our club as soon as you can. There is a very good relationship with him and Man United. They're talking regularly. So, you know, he thought he was coming back. He's not coming back. Do you think United went, oh yeah, just changed their mind? They will have said to him, look, you've seen the reaction. It's best for you to go elsewhere. Let's see what happens in a year's time. That's what I'm saying, Aiden. So I can guarantee that. I put it into the chat yesterday. Swap for Chiesa seems far too competent to actually come to fruition, says Liam. Well, I don't actually know the origin of this story, but I think we would all like to see Jadon Sancho leave Manchester United. And not because Jadon Sancho is disliked. Some of you might dislike him. I don't know him personally. I like him as a player. It really frustrates me, you know. You know, the Mason Greenwood thing is what it is. As a footballer, I feel that he was a generational talent. Everything else that happened off the pitch isn't worth going on about. But the Jadon Sancho thing is frustrating because technically I think he's a really good footballer. And, you know, there has been footballers that have been technically good that have wasted their talent for various reasons. And, you know, that bothers me. But I think if I was offered a swap deal for Jadon Sancho now for Chiesa, I would do it. I'd consider it even if Sancho was well liked by Ten Hag and training hard and part of the first team. I'd consider it. So, of course, I'm going to consider it now. Why do I think it's... Why would you be happy, Mark, if Jadon Sancho left? Because I think it's obviously the right decision for everybody. There's no... If I sit here and say, oh, you know, it'll be horrible if Jadon Sancho leaves, it's not fair. Who's it not fair on? Ten Hag clearly wants him to go. The club clearly want him to go, and he clearly wants to go. So, of course, I'm going to sit here and say I'd be over the moon if Jadon Sancho left, because clearly everybody involved in that wants to go. There's nobody I feel sorry for because everybody wants to go. I feel frustrated, and I think it's a shame that it hasn't worked out. The biggest victim, as always, is the fans, because we invested a lot of time in that Jadon Sancho transfer. You think about it, we had a whole summer where we didn't get him, and then we had a whole summer where we did get him. And, you know, the highlight reel of Jadon Sancho's Man United career is actually the 2 summer transfer windows trying to sign him. You know, they're the best bits. 90% club, you know, the best part of his career at Man United was actually trying to sign him. It's just not worked out. So, obviously, it would be great if he could move on. It'd be good for his career. He's only 23. It'd be good for Man United. It'd be good for the fans. And if you could do a swap deal, it'd be fantastic. And I do like Chiesa. And I think Chiesa is the sort of player that works at Manchester United because he's had a few injury problems, but he's a workaholic type of player. You know, he gets it. And I think Chiesa would be, you know, a really interesting signing for Manchester United. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think, as was said there, I think it's way too logical to think that Man United could do a swap deal like that and Juventus would want to do a swap deal like that. But I think Jadon Sancho will work at another football club. He's proven that at Dortmund, and maybe Jadon Sancho is more of a European player. Morning, Mark. I back Ten Hag, but this Sancho stuff is just bad. In my opinion, I'm not condoning Sancho either, says Showtime. Thank you. I love the content and keep up the good work. You help me with my mental health, and just listening to your videos helps me. Gets through the day. Hoping for better days for United, says Josh. Don't forget to listen to the podcast as well, because you can just listen to that one. Goldbridge Saves Football out today. Mark, what's the future of the United stand if the club goes back to winning ways, considering we wouldn't be a circus anymore, says Tony. That's an interesting question for a news show, Tony. I mean, I seem to recall Manchester United beating Brentford on a 3 p.m. Saturday game just 4 days ago, and we had our second highest viewing figures of the season so far. So if you're trying to insinuate that United Stand only gets by on negativity, well, I've been very, very positive for well over 18 months now. Ever since Ten Hag came in the club, I've backed that decision and I want him to do well. And there is this myth that we do well when we're not doing very well, which I completely disagree with. There's a lot of positivity on this channel. Obviously, there's a lot of opinion, but there's a lot of positivity. And if we get a Premier League title, then maybe that's it. Maybe I'll walk, but that's what I want. But don't listen to the nonsense that the negativity sells. I mean, we had about 90,000 people watching that Brentford winning goal by McTominay at the weekend. It's nonsense. We do well because we do good content and we've got a great community. Massive hit with that contract. Don't think we'll get much for him, says David Sherwin, talking about Sancho. So yeah, look, I'd absolutely love it. I'd love it if there was a swap deal for Sancho, and maybe that logically is the way to go about it. But I'll tell you this for free. United are in trouble. United are in massive trouble. And no, late win against Brentford changes that on the pitch. And no story about a swap deal for Chiesa in January changes it off the pitch. Jadon Sancho is an asset listed against the debt, £75 million. Jadon Sancho is on at least £300,000 a week. No one's going to pay that. No one's going to pay that. So how do you remove a player like that? And it does make you think, somebody said in the week, could Sancho outlast Eric Ten Hag? This is why Mourinho went. Thankfully, this is not what United are doing. But Mourinho went because Man United looked at the players that weren't happy and realised financially it was better to get rid of Jose. And because they looked at the players that he wasn't getting on with and backed those players because financially they were locked in. Well, we're locked in with Sancho, really. That's not what United are looking to do here. They're not looking to side with Sancho. We know that. But in the past, that has happened. But the problem still remains. How do you remove a player with numerous years left on their contract on £300,000 a week who you paid £75 million for and you're in over £500 million of debt and you've got a very, very poor recruitment team? How do you do that? I don't know how United removed Jadon Sancho from that club, because we're not the sort of club that can do what Barcelona have done in the past, or what Man City can do. We can't go, get out of our club, Cancelo. I don't care how much you earn, and I don't care how much you're worth, get out of our club because you've undermined the manager. We can't do that because we aren't in a financial position to do it. I always listen to the podcast and I have a question. If you got the opportunity to manage Man United, how would you make the team the best again, says Josh. This leads lovely into what I wanted to talk about. I've seen... There's a couple of people actually. I'm going to shout out here, ex-players, and I get frustrated. I'm sure everybody else gets frustrated, but I get frustrated about the nonsense, the merry-go-round, the sensationalism about Manchester United. I personally feel, Josh and everybody else, that Manchester, and I don't know whether you agree, I think Manchester United fail. And I've been using these two words, don't do it that way, these two words for a long time. We're not ruthless and we're not aggressive. And I think that runs through the whole club. We're not ruthless and we're not aggressive. Whether that's on the pitch, whether that's in the boardroom, whether that's recruiting players, whether that's selling players, we're not ruthless and we're not aggressive. And therefore, we will never be successful. And the amazing thing is, in a footballing sense, the reason I learnt those lessons was from the Sir Alex era, because he was ruthless and he was aggressive, and we were successful because of that. So I find it amazing that we are now a football club where certain fans like myself and many of you know what's needed to make United great again, but the people in the club don't. And examples of this are just says, Mark, as a society, we always assume men guilty when it comes to, but what if Mason was manipulative? Yeah, we're not talking about that, mate. Sorry, you're about 6 months too late. We're not talking about that. Mason Greenwood is playing football in Spain for La Liga, in La Liga. The court case never happened. The audio's out there. The pictures are out there. He's with that girl. They've got a kid. He's playing in Spain. He's on loan for a year. We're talking about whether he'll play for Man United next summer, whether he'll play for Man United next season. All that talk, you can have it wherever you want, but we're not having it. We don't need to have it. It's everybody knows that. It's about what his future's going to be. The reality is, going back to what I was saying before, I saw what Peter Schmeichel said about Ten Hag, and basically he said that I can't believe that Ten Hag was looking to sell Scott McTominay after 2 goals for Scott McTominay at the weekend. Rio Ferdinand said, Scott McTominay is the sort of player that you can rely on in times of need. And I'm listening to this, and I'm like, look, I'm really, really happy with what United did on Saturday, and obviously McTominay got the goals. But 2 weeks ago, Scott McTominay was being absolutely lambasted for coming on against Bayern Munich, giving the ball away and jogging back as somebody sprinted towards our goal. So we can rely on him in moments of need, can we? He was getting absolutely slated 2 weeks ago. Certain people in the media were saying, you can't do that. Why is he doing that? Is he given up? He's only just come on as a sub and he's not even tracking back. A few days before that, against Brighton, he was given a 3 out of 10, obviously limited in his role and offered very little, 3 out of 10. Not my words, the words of the Manchester Evening News. And this is what I mean. We will never be successful as a football club when after one game, a world-class player is finished. And after one decent game, an average player that's not been good for 18 months is the answer. We live in a society, and Manchester United swallow it up, of sensational nonsense. Like there's no real conversation going on, and we'll never be successful because we always set ourselves up to lose. You know, everybody's piling on now saying start McTominay, start Maguire, start Garnacho, start Martial, drop Rashford, drop Mount, drop Onana, drop Casemiro. And it's like, do you not see that won't work? Like, the players you're going to bring in have had their chances, some of them over the last 3 years, but certainly over the last 18 months. The players that you're going to drop are better than the players you want to bring in. So long term, it won't work. Short term, it will work against Sheffield United. It would work playing me CDM against Sheffield United. But it won't work. But the problem is, you get these people who have played the game, who start talking this nonsense, and people swallow it up as they ride the wave of positivity. If I was Scott McTominay, I'd be more interested in someone like, I don't know, Eric in the chat, who has probably said over the last few weeks, McTominay's shit, get rid of him. But then on Saturday said, fair play. You know, he came on, he got the goals, he was what we needed, fair play. If I was McTominay, I'd listen to Eric's opinion because it's more honest. Eric has said McTominay's been crap for over a year. I would have sold him in the summer. But you know what? Fair play. He came on at the weekend. He embodied what we needed. He got the goal. Let's hope he can kick on from there. That sort of opinion is far better than, I don't know why United were looking to sell McTominay. He embodies everything about this club. He's a guy you can rely on when things are tough. Well, we couldn't rely on him last season. We couldn't rely on him 2 weeks ago. But suddenly we can rely on him because he scored 2 goals against Brentford. Yeah, and this is nonsense. This is nonsense. And this is what I mean about mates rates. There's too many people who are involved in that football club who gob off when things are going well and stay quiet when things aren't going bad. I don't remember Rio 2 weeks ago when McTominay wasn't tracking back against Bayern or he was having a bad game against Brighton. I don't remember him putting a piece out saying Scott McTominay is the player that you can rely on in times of need. Were we not in times of need against Brighton when we were 3-1 down? Were we not in times of need against Bayern when we needed a late goal? But, you know, what I meant is, in a specific scenario where we're hoofing the ball long into Brentford's box and they're knackered, he's the player we need. Well, with all due respect, I don't need a player against Brentford. I need a player in a time of need against Man City, week in, week out, consistently. That's what we need. And, you know, I was very happy with what happened on Saturday, and I think McTominay does deserve game time. And it's not actually about McTominay anyway. It could be Maguire, it could be Martial, it could be Garnacho, it could be Reguilon, it could be any player that clearly isn't good enough when we've got everybody fit, that gets championed because they have a couple of games and they show a bit of passion. And that answers your question, Josh. How I would change Manchester United is that we have to... Look, I'd walk into that club if I was Qatar tomorrow and I'd say, Harry Maguire, Anthony Martial, Reguilon, you're going back to Spurs, McTominay, you go. You know, there's players that played well at the weekend I'm selling tomorrow if I've got the ability to... Somebody says, you've got the money, you've got the power, make us great again. I'm walking in and selling a lot of the players that were on the pitch against Brentford at the end. Not because they didn't get us a win, but because I'm looking at Man City. I'm not looking at Brentford. You're not good enough. You know, you've had your time. You're injury prone. You're not quite good enough. I can get better than you. Off you go. Ruthless aggression. Ruthless to get rid and make big decisions. Aggressive to go and get what you know is needed. That's what Man United need. And, you know, we had a really good result on Saturday. And, you know, we've got to build on that. We've got to buzz from that. But what I get absolutely, I find it so nauseating, is that we get a result like that. We all know it's paper in the cracks. And then you get 2 days of people coming out going, I don't know why Ten Hag's not been picking Maguire, McTominay and Martial. I don't know why he was looking to sell Maguire, McTominay. You can rely on these players. These are the players that should be playing. You know, these are the players that they get it. They know what Man United are all about. They should be playing. And I'm like, hold on a minute. I don't want to be a party pooper, but you're championing players that 2 weeks ago played absolutely shit. 2 weeks ago. And last season were absolutely shit. So we're going to take a minuscule 10 minutes against Brentford and decide that these are the players we need to pick when there's 10 months of them not being good enough. And that's how ridiculous it is. 10 minutes of a good performance against 10 months or more of bad performances, and you've got people with big voices going, these are the players you can rely on. I can't believe they were looking to sell him. He's exactly what we need. And I'm like, this is why we fail. Because ultimately, these people are surrounded by pause buttons, re-record buttons, and advisors, and they'll never say anything controversial off the cuff because it's always about, now, you know, we're recording this video today. It would be really good to have a section that's really positive about the players that won against Brentford. And let's say stuff like, this is what Man United's all about. These are the players of what Man United's all about. And that's absolutely fine, but we all know those players that finished the game against Brentford would get their arse smacked by Liverpool, Spurs and everybody else. It's not good enough. But people don't want to have that conversation at the moment because they want to, you know, ride the positivity train. But they weren't riding that positivity train 2 weeks ago when those players weren't performing. And also, as well, there's a few of them that have said, it always gets thrown in, would love to see us win a Premier League on the United stand, Mark says Tony. Oh, I bloody love it. I'll bloody love it. I'll bloody love it, I tell you. But also, you get this thing as well, that I'm just going to say it, okay. You get these people, right, and I don't need to name any of them, but because there's a few. They'll say things like, and it could be Rashford, it could be McTominay at the weekend, it could be, you know, it fits a lot of people, right? They get it. They get it. It's so important. They get it. They've come through the academy. They know what the club's all about. They get it. These players are so important because they get it. And it's almost like they get it more than everybody else. And I would say, but for every Sir Bobby Charlton, for every Ryan Giggs, there's a Brian Robson who didn't come through the youth academy. There's a Roy Keane who didn't come through the youth academy. There's an Eric Cantona who didn't come through the youth academy. And it's almost like if you've come through the youth academy, you get Man United more than everybody else. And yet you could argue in our top 5 players of all time, there's only 1, maybe 2 players that came through the youth academy. So I think, again, it's just this noise that actually doesn't help us. Rooney didn't come through the youth academy as well. There's more, but there's this obsession with we've got to modernise. We've got to get ruthless. We've got to get aggressive. This is obsession at this football club with, if you've come through the youth academy, you get it more than everybody else. It's the United way. Bullshit. We all want players to come through the academy, but there's bloody 99.5% of our players from the academy don't make it. They don't make it. And Ronaldo didn't come through the academy either. Like, we're just not in the right place mentally as a football club. As I said, players at the weekend who played, desperation from Ten Hag. He's hardly played McTominay. He's hardly played Maguire. He's hardly played Garnacho. He's hardly played Martial. He's dropped Eriksen. You know, all those players that made a difference to win against Brentford actually aren't anywhere near Ten Hag's plans. You know, that was desperation on Saturday. That wasn't a plan. That was, what did I call it? Blood, Guts and Thunder FC. It was just literally, that's all I've got left. You know, like, I don't know whether you've ever seen a film called Zulu, which is Rorke's Drift, where they're just defending against the Zulu warriors and they're overwhelmed. and even the people that were ill in hospital have to come out and grab a gun and try and fight. It's a last stand, basically. And that's what United did on Saturday. That was a last stand. You know, he literally turned round for reinforcements and he was like, well, I may as well throw you on. And for Ten Hag to say, you know, hint in his in his interview that he told McTominay to go and score a couple of goals. Oh, yeah, because that's how coaching works. You've not picked the lad hardly at all, and then your master plan was to throw him on with 10 minutes to go. We all know on Saturday it was an absolute... Vidic is another one. We all know on Saturday it was an absolute last throw of the dice. And to say that that's the way that we're going to do well over the next few weeks is hilarious. And Ten Hag's got a huge job, as I was talking on Sunday night. But what frustrates me is that these players, these ex-players, or the media, who know how Man United have been successful over the last 30 years, and start talking absolute nonsense because of their, you know, Brexit tendencies or obsession with, you know, they've come through the youth setup. It doesn't actually help us. And it's quite scary when you think about some of these people might get involved in the running of the football club if we get taken over, because they expose themselves week in, week out with their obsession with the wrong thing. This obsession with British players and people who've come through the youth academy is not going to make Man United successful in the short term, and possibly not in the long term. The class of '92 will never happen again. It was a one-off, and it will never happen again. And all around that, Busby Babes was in the 50s. So even if you think it will happen again, it's every 40 years. So we've got to do something over the next 20 years without relying on 4 or 5 top young players coming through. And anybody who thinks that you've got to be a young player to embody what Man United's all about, well, as I said, 2 weeks ago, Scott McTominay was jogging back and people would have sold him that night. Marcus Rashford is getting pelters this season because he looks like he's got a bad attitude on the pitch. Both came through the youth academy. Our last few captains, our most successful captains, didn't come through the youth academy. Roy Keane, Brian Robson, Vidic. Rooney wasn't from the youth setup either. So we need to just get real as a football club. I think people are looking for a quick fix all the time. Scott McTominay scores a couple of goals and this is the future now. He embodies what United's all about. Somebody from the youth who gets it. Passion. Bullshit. Won't be enough. Won't work. Look at Man City and stop looking at the past. Look at how Man City are modernising football. The infrastructure, the stadia, the best manager in the world, the best recruitment, the best players, the best training, the best fitness. Like, this is how you are successful. Modern football is ruthless, and you have to be ruthless yourself. You've also got to be aggressive on how you're going to be successful. And Man United, at the moment, still want to do it off vibes. They still want to do it off passion. They still want to do it off, they get it. I want 5 or 6 young players to come through from the academy because it's better when they come through the academy. It's what Manchester United have always done. But I don't want them to. I don't want to pick a player who's a 6 out of 10 when we can buy a player that's a 9 out of 10. And I feel that is where we're getting lost. We're obsessed with, you've got to be British to understand where Manchester is. You've got to come through the academy to understand what it's about playing for Man United. Hold on a minute. Can I just get my encyclopedia of the last 30 years of Man United out, starting 11s? He wasn't from the academy. He wasn't from the academy. He's not British. He wasn't from the academy. He's not British. Like, we need to modernise our opinions. And I think the fans get it. But I think time and time again, we wake up on a Monday morning and these ex-players come out with this sentimental bollocks about, oh, he gets it more than he gets it. He gets it more than he gets it. Look, as I said, people are writing off Casemiro. I think Casemiro gets winning and football more than any player that's at that football club that's been through the academy or is British. If Casemiro's falling off, it's because of his age. It's not because he's not the best player with the best mentality in that team. We saw that last season. We should be focusing on our best players, not on vibes. And at the moment, I just feel like we're riding this wave from Saturday quite rightly, but we're thinking that that's the solution. I look at Saturday and I go, we won that game by throwing everything we had left at Brentford and it worked. But if we're going to do that against Man City and Liverpool, we're going to be mid-table for the whole season. We need to get the best out of Rashford. We need to get the best out of Casemiro. We need to get the best out of Bruno. We need to get the best out of Mount. We need Luke Shaw and Martinez and Varane and Wan-Bissaka fit. We need to get the best out of Onana. We need to get the best out of Antony. Manchester United's best side for me is getting the best out of Onana, Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Martinez, Shaw, Casemiro, Amrabat, Bruno, Rashford, Højlund, Antony. That's our best 11 with Mount somewhere around there as well. I don't see Maguire, Martial, McTominay anywhere near that. And at the moment, it feels like people think that they should be. And that is the job. That is the job that Erik ten Hag has. And it amazes me that I turn the radio on or I read a piece of paper from people who played the game going, no, this is what we need to do. Man United are in a lot of trouble. Erik ten Hag's got a massive job ahead of him. And there's a lot of work to do. But, that's why I love doing this, because I mean, it's live. It's live. We're interacting. We're just saying it as we think. I've got nobody in my ear. I don't wear a headphone going, be careful what you've said there because it could be taken the wrong way. Oh, you're being a bit too honest there. Actually what we need to do is just do a little clip that's really positive that, and if we can make it a bit sentimental as well, it'll get clipped up and, everyone will pick it up and that's what we need to be doing. It's bullshit. We need to be honest about the situation at Manchester United. And unfortunately, some people at Man United don't like it because, they want to live off the positivity of the weekend for as long as possible. But actually, I think somebody said it on the watch along. This is a great win at the end. This is a great win, but there's a massive, massive amount of work that needs to be done over the next 2 weeks, and it's right. Our past success is kind of backfiring, says Parser, on us because it's caused us to have the most ex-player pundits who are clueless and obsessed with all the wrong things. Well, no, I think that, Gary Neville himself said yesterday that, United are miles off and he didn't put us in the top 5. He's right. But, yeah, look, I choose to be positive. I choose to take the 3 points at the weekend and celebrate it. And I choose to, back this manager because I think he's the right man. But if I overthink it, I do get worried. I mean, we're in such a bad position on and off the pitch. And I just don't know. I think there's so many things as well that are teetering on the edge. The Sancho thing's obvious, but, Mason Mount, Onana, those signings aren't working at the moment. And how quickly can he get them to work? Marcus Rashford, I saw a stat today. Erling Haaland's had the most shots in the Premier League so far. Second is Marcus Rashford. I didn't even dare look at what his conversion rate is, because if Marcus Rashford's had the second most shots in the Premier League this season, you and I know he's hardly scored. Rashford's a big problem to solve, isn't he? Antony's this is meant to be a very big season for Antony. Second season has to be a big season. Casemiro's now becoming a problem. Amrabat's only on loan. Injuries to the back four. Garnacho needs more game time. Bruno is hit and miss. There's so many problems he's got to solve. And the problem in life is, the more problems you've got to solve, the harder and longer it takes to solve them. And what I mean by that is, if you own a house and every room needs decorating and cleaning up, you can do it, but it's a big task compared to just having to redecorate the hall, There's a lot to do. What would you do with Scott McTominay on a real level? It's a great question. As I said, if I was Scott McTominay, I wouldn't be listening to the bullshit that certain ex-players are putting out there to kiss his arse, because they weren't kissing his arse 2 weeks ago. And he might have them on WhatsApp, but mate, you need to wake up and have a look at it properly. You didn't track back against Bayern Munich. Why? And then, you're coming on at the weekend and you're scoring 2 big goals, doing a knee slide, and everyone loves it. What's going on? You deserved the criticism 2 weeks ago, and you deserved the praise on Saturday. If I was a player, I would always listen to, fair criticism and then embrace fair praise. And he deserved praise for Saturday, but he deserves the criticism for the previous year. These people who are praising him now, who are ex-players, they've never criticised him. It's fake. You want to get real opinion, and he's deserved the criticism over the last year. and he deserved the praise on Saturday. We've always said about McTominay, and I'm not his biggest fan, but I'm not his biggest fan because mainly he's played as a midfielder, and I don't think he's a midfielder. He's a hide-and-seek champion as CDM. He doesn't know how to show for the ball. He bunny hops on the ball. His passing's not too bad. He's just very slow on it. He's not a CDM. People get lost because he's well built and physical. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in a boxing ring with him. He looks like he's quite strong, but he's actually not very good at tackling. He gets a lot of yellow cards. He's good in the air, and he's got a good shot on him, and he's got a tendency in the box to find himself in the right positions. So for me, Scott McTominay is almost a bit like a wish Thomas Muller. That's what I would say he is. And look, Thomas Muller is one of the best attacking midfielders, underrated attacking midfielders we've had in the last decade in the game, longer than a decade. But I think that's where McTominay's best position is, Thomas Muller. I think he's an attacking midfielder who could potentially do a job for you up front, but I think he's an attacking midfielder that you want in and around the box, who can take up positions, and he's got a good finish on him. And then defensively, on corners and set pieces, you know he can count on him to defend with his head. And on corners, offensively and set pieces, he's effective. But that's what I would describe Scott McTominay as. And I've never heard anybody really, oh, he needs to play here, he needs to play there. But nobody ever really, oh, McTominay this, McTominay that. But like, it's the same with, we've had players like this in the past when we had Varane here. Like, where does he actually play? What a great signing. And you're like, yeah, but we've got Scholes, Beckham, Giggs, and Keane. Where does Varane play then? We're going to start playing a 4-5-1. It's not really the United way, is it? So I think with Scott McTominay, I would say he's in the most respectful way possible, because Muller is fantastic. He's sort of a Thomas Muller sort of position is where he needs to play. Hi Mark, but can you play? But this is the problem. Oh, McTominay needs to play more. His best position is where Bruno and Mount play. And we can't play Bruno and Mount in the same team. And this is why he gets played out of position, because he's big and physical. I actually feel sorry for McTominay because he's been played in a position. I mean, he's played centre-back for Scotland as well. It's the same thing we do when we put Bruno on the right wing. It's the same thing we do when we put Amrabat at left wing. McTominay reminds me of me when I used to play football for my school when I was 14. I was 6 foot at 14. I was 6 foot at 24. I never grew after 14. But because I was a bit taller than everybody else at 14, I used to get put holding midfielder or CDM, holding midfielder or centre-back because, you're quite good at playing out from the back, you can read the game, etc. But it was only because I knew it was because I was tall. If it was 5'8", I'd have been on the wing. And I think with McTominay, that probably has happened a lot through his career. But he's not a holding midfielder. He's not a centre-back. I don't even think he's box-to-box. I think he is a player that needs to play close to the attacker. And I think Ten Hag has tried to do that. But how he can do that consistently with the players that he's got. Would you consider keeping Regwell on as a backup fullback, and would you want to play Scott up front as a super sub until we can sell him? No, I wouldn't. Well, Tristan, I wouldn't play him up front. I wouldn't play him up front. And as I said, if I was Scott McTominay, I would go and play football in the Premier League for somebody like Everton or West Ham, where I can play every week. I know I get the fact that he loves Manchester United, but I don't really see a future for him at Man United. I don't. I mean, Solskjaer came on every game. Like, Solskjaer would always come on. I don't think McTominay's going to come on every game, because I think there's so many players that Ten Hag has prioritised ahead of him, which is why I would say to Peter Schmeichel was saying, I don't understand why McTominay was for sale in the summer. Well, he was for sale in the summer because there's about 7 players ahead of him. In the attacking midfield position, there's a lot of players ahead of him. And look, McTominay works against Brentford when you're pinging long balls into the box desperately in the last 5 minutes. But does he work when you're playing against Liverpool at Anfield and the ball's on the ground for 90 minutes and you're 3-0 down? No. So that's why I think Ten Hag was looking to sell him, because it's a unique skill set that he probably won't use that often. But I definitely think his best position is as a more advanced attacking midfielder. Anyway, look, I could keep talking all day. You know I will. 8 o'clock show tonight. Really enjoyed the 8 o'clock show last night, so make sure you tune in for that. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe. And don't forget on your way out to search Goldbridge Saves Football on Spotify or iTunes and give it a download and a listen. It was a great episode this week. Quite an interesting thought about the sexual relationship with football. You need to listen to the podcast to find out that horror. It was horrific. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll speak to you in a little bit. Take care.